The Reapers are regarded as one of the most disappointing villainous groups within the fanbase of The Walking Dead. Today, I'm going to take you through their story throughout Season 11, but this video is going to be a little bit different. You see, to understand the Reaper arc, you need to understand what was supposed to be. You see, about a year ago, Lauren Cohan had given an interview discussing the original plan for The Walking Dead before it was decided it was going to end at Season 11. In an interview with BuzzFeed, she's quoted as saying, "Before I even went back to The Walking Dead at the end of Season 10, Scott Gimple had asked me about my interest in either coming back on the show or doing a different show. Originally, what they ended up deciding to do was have me come back on the show and have Jeff and I take over. At the time, Norman was going to leave, Andy had left, Denai had left. We were going to go into Season 11 and do 4 more years with the show, with Jeff and I kind of remaining on The Walking Dead. And in the end, they had this idea for Dead City, with our characters in a whole new location with a new storyline that sounded really exciting, because it meant we could jump forward in time. Based off what we saw in Season 10 with Daryl and Carol's talks of going to New Mexico, I think it's safe to assume Carol probably would have left the show along with Daryl, leaving Maggie and Negan to take on the helm as the show's leads. But with Maggie being gone for over a season and a half by now, how is she going to mold back into the current plotline, and how are fans going to react to her reintroduction? Enter the Reapers. See, it isn't known the full extent the Reapers were supposed to play in the original version of Season 11, but it's clear their overall purpose was to prop up Maggie and Negan as the show's leads. This is why the group feels so out of place within the craziness of the Commonwealth arc within Season 11. They were supposed to take center stage for the season, but were expedited as Angela Kang was only given 24 episodes to finish off the whole show, opposed to the 5 seasons she thought she was going to get in the first place. You see, the Reaper arc was already written by the time the news broke, so the crew had to make a decision. Cut the already written Reaper arc and waste all that time entirely, or integrate what they already wrote into the now final season. So with this in mind, how did the Reaper arc turn out? Our story begins in the bonus episodes of Season 10, specifically Episode 17, Home Sweet Home. Here we see the return of Maggie is not all sunshine and rainbows, as she and her new crew are being hunted by a group of mercenaries calling themselves the Reapers. Their reunion is cut short as Maggie's new group is getting picked off one by one by the unseen threat, setting up the danger this new group could bring. We meet the man in the woods terrorizing the new faces as he's decked out in camouflage, showing the man is hunting for sport. When questioned on his motive, the man only utters the words, "Pope marked you," before blowing himself up with a grenade. What the hell was that? A militarist hunting in the woods for sport, then blowing himself up without a fight? It's one hell of a strange encounter, and to the show's benefit, produces quite a bit of intrigue into this new group. Going into Season 11, Maggie reveals these Reapers are the reason she came back in the first place. The Reapers' mode of attack is to come by surprise at night and kill everyone in sight without questions. Maggie's group was blindsided and evicted from their newly built home, the Meridian, a community capable of sustaining agricultural growth, something that's hard to come by as we see from the fall of the Sanctuary. Now she's returned with a new threat, but also a solution to a new problem. You see, immediately following the Whisper War, check out that video if you haven't gotten the chance, shameless plug, the kingdom was lost, the hilltop was burned, and Alexandria remained ravaged by the Whisperer horde, destroying most of their farmland and food production areas. So when Maggie proposes a mission back to the Meridian under the guise of a supply run, a small militia group agrees to back her. Now, I gotta interrupt here because I think there might be a bit of a plot hole here. Maggie is fully aware that the Reapers are using the Meridian as a base, but the show portrays her as being completely blindsided here. Unless I missed something here, this is a bit of strange writing. Let me know in the comments if I did miss something or if I'm wrong. But on the way to the Meridian, the group decides to take the subway system to avoid the coming storm. Here we see Maggie and Negan's dynamic fully in action as the two bicker for most of the trip, as Maggie is forced to make some pretty harsh decisions, mirroring some of the horrible things Negan did in the past. They really try to make us see Negan's side here, but the big difference is Maggie takes no joy in letting Gage, one of their allies, die for the cause. Negan would do the exact same thing with a smile on his face, so I don't think the parallel really works that well. But coming out of the subway, our crew finds themselves in the middle of an empty street in the darkness. Hanging from the lights, they see bodies upside down, giving them every reason not to approach further. But I guess Maggie forgot the whole they only attack at night thing, because sure enough, they attack at night. Here we see just how dangerous this group is immediately, as we get a really awesome sequence of all the red shirt characters getting fucking murked, sending our core group scattering in the woods at night, with the masked threat on their tails. This introduction scene is actually really awesome because it feels realistic that our group wouldn't be able to travel that great a distance without eventually running into some sort of bandit. And having all the red shirt characters die in this episode really makes you feel the stakes, even if you don't really care about the characters themselves. Also, rip my man Roy. You didn't deserve that. Now, as everyone is fleeing, Daryl comes face to face with one of the Reapers, who uncharacteristically doesn't immediately attack. And even more strange, his dog seems to like them. The mysterious Reaper takes off her mask, and it is revealed Daryl knows this person. Very well, in fact. You see, during the 6-year time jump, Daryl had briefly begun a relationship with Leah, a rugged loner much like himself. The two got to know each other and learned how similar they truly were. But Leah grew cold as Daryl would not let go of the coalition and run away with her. Waking up one morning, Daryl found himself alone. Well, sort of. She left him her dog as a parting gift. But until today, Daryl and Leah have not spoken. The interaction quickly goes from awkward to hostile as Daryl is held at gunpoint and surrounded. With a bag over his head, Daryl is taken back to the Meridian and is bound. Out in the wilderness, Maggie's militia is picked off one by one as the Reapers display an advanced knowledge of combat, leaving our survivors basically defenseless and at the mercy of the masked assassins. Among the panic, Alden is severely injured. Maggie and Negan are forced to leave him behind, promising to come back for him. Maggie puts on a smile and walks out the door, but deep down she knows she's leaving him to die. This clearly takes a toll on Maggie, as her mission has now gotten most, if not all, of her crew killed. And the cherry on top, Negan is now her only companion. But the mission must go on. Back at the Meridian, Leah tortures Daryl for information on Maggie and her group, as they are well aware of who she is. But Daryl claims he was simply traveling with those people and had no real ties to them, as a way to gain trust to his former partner. This kind of backfires as one of Maggie's men, Frost, was also captured, and as a way to prove his loyalty, Daryl is forced to torture his own ally for information. This would have been a smart writing decision early on in the series, as it puts Daryl into a compromised position that intends to make the viewer question his loyalty. But let's be real. 11 seasons in, we know Daryl, and we know he would never sell out or hurt Maggie. But her random red shirt followers? He'll fuck him up any day for the greater good. Frost is killed by a Reaper shortly after, and we do see it slightly affect Daryl. But for their situation, it seemed like there was a mutual understanding between the two that a sacrifice was going to have to be made. This convinces Leah that Daryl really is switching sides. And here we see Leah approach the Reaper's leader. The man himself? Mario. I mean Pope. Right away we see Pope display a cult-like leadership over Leah and the Reapers, opening up the mystery of who these people are even further. Pope isn't convinced Daryl is loyal to them and decides he needs to be tested. So that night, when alone with Leah, he lights the whole ass building on fire and forces Daryl to find a way to escape. He makes it out with Leah in hand, solidifying to Pope his loyalty, as the Reapers share the belief they are a family and nobody gets left behind. Daryl is now accepted into the Reaper militia, and as Maggie and Negan prepare an assault from the inside, Daryl prepares to take them down from within. As Daryl is welcomed into the Reaper clan, he is filled in on the group's history. Before the outbreak, most of them were US soldiers fighting in Afghanistan. After returning home, most of them stayed close as they shared the struggle of finding jobs after returning and coping with PTSD, and in time, became mercenaries. When the dead began to rise, Pope found himself with 15 of his men held up in a church. As the bombs from Operation Cobalt fell around them and everything burned, dead and alive, the mercenaries found themselves untouched by the napalm. Declaring themselves to be blessed by God himself, Pope formed the Reapers, and his men followed him like a moth to a flame. It's assumed that Leah was there for the event, as in the present she is seen as Pope's right-hand woman. Following the bombing, Pope utilized the skills of his former mercenaries to pillage and cleanse settlements across the East Coast, in the name of God, using stealth techniques like we see them use on Maggie's group in the modern day. Leah had adopted a son named Matthew before the outbreak, but following the rise of the dead, he was devoured by a horde of walkers, turning her into the stone-cold assassin we see today. The revelation of the Reapers seeing themselves as the chosen ones and a family puts into context why Leah went so cold when Daryl wouldn't devote his loyalty to her. The pieces of the story are all there, they're just kind of presented in a bit of a messy way. Pope believes they are chosen by God and therefore must cleanse the world of sin, explaining why they attack at random without mercy. And the Mass? Well, I guess they creep people out? I don't know, they never really explain why they're masked or why they stop wearing them after a few episodes. The cult-like aspect of the Reapers is pretty interesting, going as far as to call each other brother and sister, until it all falls apart after one scene. Pope preaches on about loyalty and family, and then burns one of his men alive for leaving another Reaper behind to die. This immediately hurts Pope as a character, as it did for Negan when he would say, "People are a resource," and then throws their only doctor into a fire. Or like when he preaches about keeping kids safe, but then, he was almost about to beat Carl's head in. The show tends to make their big villains kill their own men to try to make them seem unpredictable, but in most cases like this one with Pope, it makes the villain come off as hypocritical instead. Back in the present, the Reapers, now accompanied by Daryl, are on the tracks of Maggie, Negan, Gabriel, and the remaining survivors of the crew, now reunited. Daryl walks the wire between showing loyalty to the Reapers and protecting his friends as their tracks eventually end up on top of each other. Daryl notices his crew below the floorboards and proceeds to discreetly expose information to Maggie on the Reapers, such as their numbers and current plans. I really love this scene because it allows us to see Daryl think his way out of a situation for once, opposed to just, blowing shit up. One of the Reapers, Carver, doesn't trust Daryl and accuses him of disloyalty, but Daryl's cover is solid with his past relationship with Leah, convincing Carver he's there for her. After returning without Maggie and her group, Pope scolds the Reapers and demands they go look again, and as the loyal family they totally are, they oblige. Here we see the cracks in the story begin to form as Daryl presses Leah on her relationship with Pope, as she allegedly sees him as a father, but Daryl doesn't buy it and sees the reluctance in her face. Coming across a lone survivor, he pleads for help for his sick wife. Naturally, Pope orders the two to kill the man and his family, but after seeing their innocence, Leah agrees to lie to Pope about killing them. This now shows us that even the most loyal Reapers are capable of betraying their family. Daryl and Leah are frantically instructed to return to Meridian by Pope, and upon doing so, they see Maggie and Negan's plan going into effect. Following the close call with the Reapers beneath the floorboards, Maggie, Negan, and co now know the location, numbers, and strategies of the assassins, setting them up to make a strike. But how do you start an assault on a heavily militarized group that already knows you're coming? Well, this is where one of my favorite aspects of the Reaper arcs comes in. In the comics, after the Whisperer War, the skin suits are completely retired, which never really sat well with me considering they're basically a walker-proof suit. They portray it as a morality thing, but this far into the series, our survivors have done way worse things for lower stakes, so not using the suits seems kind of ridiculous. But in the show, Maggie has Negan by her side, and I guess for sentimental reasons, kept his Whisperer mask. Negan begins training Maggie on the ways of the Whisperers, creating her a mask and testing it out in a controlled environment. It takes a while for Maggie to get the hang of it, but in time, she learns the ways and teaches her remaining allies as well. Now with a horde in tow and a way to control it, Maggie and Negan march onto the Meridian. Now something I'm torn up on is how I feel about Pope immediately figuring out the Whisperer tactic. On one hand, it makes the Reapers seem hyper aware of New World War tactics, and makes them seem really smart in combat, But on the other hand, the Whisperers had our group running around the woods at night, shitting their pants until losing Jesus. It just kind of makes our survivors seem less competent in retrospect. Pope orders his man Paul Wells to lead the horde away. But like we all wanted to see, he gets ambushed by Whisperer Maggie and Negan and killed. Pope then reveals he purposely sent Paul to his death in order to see if Maggie really was leading the attack. Just another example of Pope being a hypocrite and killing his own family. Approaching the gates of Meridian, the horde begins triggering a previously placed minefield, blowing walkers up all around them as they narrowly avoid the debris and break into the gates. Daryl's time with the Reapers is coming to an end as he needs to help Maggie's crew the best he can, and he does this by cold-bloodedly killing one of the Reapers guarding an entrance, a man he came to actually respect. But I guess that's the price of war. As the horde piles in with Maggie, Negan, and Elijah in its ranks, Pope prepares his secret weapon. Now, this thing borders the line between one of the coolest and one of the dumbest weapons on the show. A hwacha, which is basically a 16th century Korean weapon that uses gunpowder to fire rocks at mass. Pope demands Leah fires the weapon, but as there are Reapers fighting the horde below, she refuses, sending Pope into a frenzy, refusing to see reason and save his own men. Leah actually practices what she preaches with the loyal family thing for once, and refuses to stand by as her brothers and sisters are killed. So in the heat of the moment, Leah attacks and kills Pope. And that's it for Pope. A sadistic man with delusions of grandeur. I'm not sure what I was expecting from Pope's character, but it certainly wasn't 5 episodes of hypocrisy before an anticlimactic death. But that being said, Leah stands over Pope's dead body, Daryl believing the conflict to be ending. But in one of the most what-the-fuck moments of writing I've seen from this show, Leah pins Pope's death on Daryl. This arc could have worked well if the writers didn't put the focus of the Reapers on Leah and Daryl's relationship. We don't see the Reapers act like a family until literally right before Pope is killed. This gives Leah's character a feeling of whiplash as they didn't take the time to make you believe in their connection. Just hers and Daryl's relationship. So with the Reapers now hostile, Daryl flees the murder site and attempts to reunite with Maggie, Gabriel, and Negan. But as they are still moving throughout the horde, Leah has the Reapers fall back and prepare the hwacha, and when the courtyard is cleared, fires. By some miracle, none of our survivors are hit by the projectiles, but basically the entire horde is now taken out. What happens next is basically a race to take out as many of the other group as possible, with Maggie, Negan, Elijah, Daryl, and Gabriel taking out Reapers one by one. A surprisingly easy task considering how much combat experience they actually have. The only Reaper we see put up much of a fight is Carver, who beats the shit out of our survivors before Negan gets the upper hand.
Well, ding ding.
Deciding to use Carver as leverage for escape, Maggie, Daryl, and the others agree to meet Leah and the remaining Reapers in the courtyard. Daryl proposes they spare Carver if the Reapers leave Meridian, but Leah rejects the offer as they have a sniper on one of the rooftops, keeping them dead to rights. Realizing they've been beat, Daryl releases Carver, but in one of the most badass clutch moments, Gabriel shoots Carver through the leg, revealing he got the upper hand on the Reaper sniper.
Call me Gabriel.
The Reapers know the tides have turned and surrender, agreeing to Daryl's terms and walking out Meridian's gates. But Maggie is full of rage. The home she built up with her bare hands was taken, and the family she spent years forming were killed. And in her coldest moment, she approaches the Reapers from behind and guns them down. Barely escaping with her life, Leah runs off as the sole survivor, and Daryl, in the name of their past relationship, lets her live. When everything's said and done, Maggie circles back to the building Alden was left in, just to discover his turned body, another casualty of the mission. The battle has been won, and food for Alexandria has been secured. But was the cost worth all those lives and Maggie's humanity? The remaining survivors somberly return home, having lost most of their militia, but gained enough supplies to keep them out of danger for the time being. And as they recover from the horrific events that just occurred, a new problem approaches. Six months following the battle with the Reapers, Alexandria come into contact with a large settlement known as the Commonwealth. I'm not going to get into the details of the Commonwealth here, that'll be a video for another day. But what you need to know is this Commonwealth has over 50,000 people and an army, and has turned hostile onto the Coalition. Many Commonwealth soldiers turn up dead, and at first, our survivors are blamed for it, sparking tensions between the factions. But it turns out, Leah had been surviving in the woods alone this whole time, and taking out soldiers, mistaking them for members of our coalition. The Commonwealth's representative, Lance Hornsby, discovers Leah's location, and after seeing her capabilities against his soldiers, recruits her to assassinate Maggie, as the two have a mutual desire to see her die. Late at night, the hilltop is invaded by Leah and the soldiers, but as Maggie had the intuition to prepare for an attack, the soldiers set off the rigged explosives within the Barrington house. Everyone is killed, except Leah, who marches out of the flames like the fucking Terminator. Maggie knows Leah only wants her, so she splits from the rest of the Hilltop crew and heads into the woods to confront her, one-on-one. After a brief gunfight, Leah captures Maggie and ties her up to gloat in her face before killing her. But Maggie is a smart survivor and is able to antagonize Leah into fighting her, instead of shooting her down. It's a pretty one-sided fight, but as Leah is about to finish off Maggie, Daryl shoots her in the head, immediately putting down his former partner. This will forever take a toll on Daryl, as even though Leah was bad to the core, he still cared for her deeply. I can't help but feel that the only reason the writers brought Leah back was because they really wanted to adapt Dwight's comic book death without actually having to use Dwight. I appreciate them trying it, but I don't think the moment warranted an entire episode lead up. The Commonwealth may still remain as an unbeatable fight, but at least the Reapers are put to rest permanently. So that's the complete Reaper story arc in the Walking Dead TV series. But you may be asking yourself, didn't this guy say this arc was meant to prop up Maggie and Negan's characters? I did say that, but as we see from the rewrites of Season 11, Daryl seemed to have taken a huge chunk of the plot lines. As with him now staying for the remainder of the show's run, they had to give him something to do, as he technically was the face of the show currently. The arc starts out with a focus on Maggie and Negan in the Acheron episodes, but quickly shifts to Daryl as its main player around episode 4. I love seeing Maggie and Negan use the Whisperer tactics against the Reapers, but I can't help but wonder what that would have led to, given the show went in its original direction. But that was the complete story arc for the Reapers in The Walking Dead, folks. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and maybe drop a sub if you're feeling generous. And I'll have more Walking Dead content coming for you soon.